and take it up to the top tank and pour it in. Behind me is their solar power array of panels. This gives us 240 volts from 4 6-volt batteries, making 24 volts. Now, you don't need electricity to be able to live off the grid. My wife and I lived for over 20 years without electricity. We used candles and grease lamps for lighting. I guess the main advantage of having electricity is that you can have a fridge or a freezer or a fridge freezer. You can keep your food cool, you can even freeze it. Now, we don't have a big fridge, but we have one that pulls the lowest amount of power, and it has a freezer which is big enough in the top of the fridge that I could bone a goat out and fit the whole goat in there. Once you know how to bone meat out, it doesn't take up a lot of room. So that for us is a big advantage, but you don't need it. So if you're thinking of moving off the grid, try and think out of the box. Try and think, without electricity, what's your life going to be like? How can you overcome the problems of not having electricity, especially when you've been used to having it? Like I say, it's not necessary. When you buy your inverter, just make sure it's big enough to handle more power than you've actually got, because if you want to expand later on, it'll save you having to get shot of that inverter and getting a larger one. If you get a large one, it'll leave you room for expansion if you think you might be doing that at a later date. This is our power board. Down here we have a large battery charger which is powered by this generator, which is just a 4 kVA petrol generator. We hardly ever use this generator. It's just a standby in case we have a week or more of overcast days. Right now, this system with these panels can handle 4 or 5 days of overcast and still give us plenty of power. This is Elm Cottage, which my wife and I and my 7-year-old boy at that time built when we first came here. We had no power on here, no inside toilet, no inside shower for 20 years. A little later we put on a couple of solar panels with a 12-volt battery just for some lighting, but for 20 years we used candles and grease lamps, and of course we cooked on wood fire stoves. You can see a 1,000-gallon tank there which feeds the house. This tank was actually our shower, which has a pulley and a canvas shower bag which we used to pull up. I also fitted a wood fire heater inside it for winter, and the hot water was carried from inside the house. Chook house and chook runs. We have some elms growing in there, so the chooks have some sort of protection from hawks, so they can actually feed in safety out in the run. Chooks can be very expensive if you have to buy the feed, so it's better to grow as much as you can in the garden and feed them from scraps. And and let them out to free range. But like I say, if you're letting them free range, there is the danger that foxes and hawks will get them, as has happened to ours. We now need to get a new lot in. Another view of Lynn's stock house. This is a fairly large house, big enough to take our whole family. This is a 5-bedroom house, with only the two of us living in it at present. But if things were to get bad and our family needs to move back in with us, well, then there's plenty of room. These are our 4 spare compost toilet bins. They sit out here and compost, and whilst there is another 2 under the house. The ventilator I fitted for our compost toilets. And going down into the 2 composting toilet bins underneath the house. The cover is here, that's off at the moment, so you can see where the bins are. This is our much used and much loved wood burning stove. We live in a forest, so having a wood burning stove is the best bet for us. We see no point in using gas or electricity. As you can see, I've got some wood drying underneath the stove, and today I've even got some in the oven. Pretty easy to cook on. This is actually a fairly modern stove. It's about 5 years old. There is a gauge on the oven door, as you can see, and there's plenty of room for what we need on the top of the stove. The wood stove also supplies our hot water for showering and washing. Here you can see the pipes coming out from the water jacket in the side of the stove and going through the wall. These are the pipes in the next room next to the kitchen. Now, most people have these pipes inside the wall. We couldn't see the point of going to the extra expense of having these pipes put through inside the wall, so we just had them pass straight through the wall and along the wall, and then they go outside the house. And out through the kitchen window here you can see the hot water tank. There's a pipe there that goes way up beyond the top of the house. We picked up this tank from the tip many years ago and brought it home just in case it could come in handy, and of course it has. It's holding our hot water. I had a stand built which wasn't very expensive. Take the tank, and I think it's better out there. We don't have any problem here in winter, and it's staying hot even when it's snowing, and I'd rather have it out there than up in the roof, where if it leaks it's going to make a mess. So outside is just fine.